Are you ready to age backwards? Well, that's exactly what my guest talked about today as I recorded the podcast. It's a delicious experience to talk to him about all things biohacking. Borja is such a gem. And so make sure you watch to the end to get every little piece of nugget that he has to share. Aging backwards. Let's do it. Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it's recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, even the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one single thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I will introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid, and that is to leave a comment, ask a question, and then remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So I've written his name down right here so I pronounce it correctly. So this is Borja, and I don't really know him very much. I just know just enough to have a couple of things that I'm really intrigued to find out about. So I'm going to let him introduce himself really quickly, and then we'll just dive into getting to know him.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Vickie. So first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure. I also know you very little, but as much to know that it's a big pleasure to be here sharing knowledge and interests. So I am Borja, or Borja, as Vickie just said. It's written Borja, just for those that are listening, and it's from Spanish origin because I am Spanish. Even though I live in the southwest of France, I am married to a Russian woman, to the woman of my life. So there's a lot of multiculturalism in my life. And I am a professional power biohacker. Why do I say power biohacker and not biohacker? Because for the last 10 years, I've been the main reference here in Europe for biohacking. So people that want to reverse the biological clock. I've worked also with athletes that want to have a better performance. It's all related with the body. Biohacking is about optimizing the functions of your body. Think about a biohacker like a mechanic a mechanic is for the car, and a biohacker is for the human body. A little bit like a doctor, but it mixes many things. It's not only modern medicine, but it's also nutrition. It's also fitness. So it's a holistic approach because it takes it as a whole. And for the past 10 years, I've been the main reference, as I said, of biohacking. And just now, a little bit more than a year ago, I created my own concept, which is power biohacking. Why is it called power biohacking? Because it's biohacking focused on the power part of it. So having more energy and feeling really like, for those that are not 20 years anymore, to feel like when you were 20 years. You look yourself in the mirror, or people around you look at you and they're like, my goodness, Vickie, oh, Francisco, oh, Paola, you really like when you were 20 years ago. Like, there's much energy all around you, and your body looks great, and it's all about that. That's
All
why
right.
it's power.
Beautiful. I love that. Well, I want to hear a little bit about you. I know you're from Spain originally,
Yes,
correct? But
yes.
now did you say you live in Russia now? Where did you just
In
say?
France, in the
France.
southwest of
But your
France.
wife is Russian.
There you go, Vickie.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. I knew
it's
I
a
heard the
puzzle.
Russian in there somewhere. So, how did you go, or how old were you when you went from Spain to France? Or was there
Yeah,
some place in between?
It happened. I've been traveling and working all related to the biohacking industry,
Okay.
going to conferences all over the world, teaching the topic in front of people in big rooms, in small rooms. It's really my passion. So that has happened for the past more than 10 years, even like I'd say 12. So because I was traveling around the world, I
Mm-hmm.
was never living anywhere. Like literally, the most time I spent somewhere was 3 months. I believe it was in Canada, like in the
Okay.
French part of
Well,
Canada.
well, not to interrupt, but to interrupt, I guess. So what did you do before you got into biohacking then?
Yeah, it was. I actually nothing to do. It's actually I was studying law.
Oh,
So
okay.
law was kind of like something that I was going to get involved. If nothing, if I didn't find my passion, but it has never been my passion. It has just been something that I had to study because as a young person, you probably know, probably was the case for you, Vicky. I don't know, but many of us, we all feel when we're young, we feel like we must study something, we must have a degree. So in my case, it was law. And
Okay.
then it became something completely different. My passion became
So
biohacking, and that's where I
how
put
did
all
you
my
get
efforts in.
introduced to biohacking then?
Yeah, very interesting question. A couple of main references. There's I've always been into personal development, and I knew all
Me
these
too.
people. Like we're talking about Tony Robbins, we're talking about Dave Asprey, which is by the way the father of biohacking, a guy that I really appreciate. Someone that has been a little bit more new to the world, so it is not part of my base, but it's Brian Johnson, who is the most famous right now because he's the one that built a $2 million lab at his home and puts his son's blood into his. He's a little bit controversial. He's like the
Hmm.
the the, the
A
one that
little
is
out
doing the
there.
most around the biohacking topic.
Yeah.
But the ones that really got me into it were the famous people, the coaches that were into personal development, and because I have always been super interested into that, they were the ones putting me into that. They were like, we'll do cold plunges, we do strategies to control our hormone levels so that we always have energy, so that we always have a high libido, so that we always are there for our children, our grandchildren. We live up to 130, 35, 180. Who knows? We have to test a lot of things that are coming new in the last 10 years and that are gonna really prove as right or wrong in the field of biohacking if you can really live up to 100-year-old being completely functional, for instance, like not having Alzheimer's, not having muscle problems, because that's the main focus of biohacking, right? And because they were talking about that got me fascinated, and that's how I
Okay.
started reading a book. Actually, I started reading a book by Tony Robbins called Life Force, and that's what got me
I don't know if
more
I have
into it.
that one. Let me write this down so I remember.
It's not the best. I'm sorry, Tony Robbins. It's just the first reference that I have. It's just the beginning of my journey. So it's the one I
Well, we all
remember the
have to start
most.
somewhere, right? So, the thing that is interesting is, we have just about everybody has this thing where as you're growing up, people put these expectations on you, of what you're supposed to do, going to the university, getting a job that pays well, that actually is, you know, inside the box big time, and I just love that it's so much more now accessible for people to get outside the box and realize that there's so many different things available besides just going to college and graduating and getting a job and climbing the ladder. And so I love it. So I assume with all this stuff that you're basically an entrepreneur, right? You're in business for
Yeah.
yourself, right? It's a totally different mindset to be an entrepreneur. And, I've known people that were friends that I've been an entrepreneur forever. About as long as you've been alive, to be perfectly honest with you. And so, but I had a friend that he was a school teacher. And so, he was very well paid for a school teacher because he was Spanish. He spoke Spanish and he was very fluent. So he was a big Spanish teacher and he had all these different degrees and certificates that went along with it. So he was making like 80,000, and this was quite a few years ago. So maybe it's more now. I don't know. But he was capped at the top, right? But he couldn't understand me as an entrepreneur because no matter how many hours he worked, he was not going to make more than what he just made on this 80,000 for the year, right? Well, as an entrepreneur, you work, you create, and you get paid for it. So you just create more, you get paid more. There's no cap unless it's in your mind, right? And he just could not grasp why I had to, or I didn't have to, but I chose to have like the dream board. I chose to have this list of things that I wanted to happen in my life and all these aspirations and everything. And his whole thing, because he was like a corporate, why can't you just be satisfied with where you're at? Was his thing. And I said, well, because that where I'm at's not the end for me. And so do you find that as an entrepreneur yourself, that you have people around you that understand that and help you to kind of stretch outside your comfort zone a little bit? Or do you have people kind of like this guy who says, why can't you just relax and do nothing right now? Because this is what we want to do. I don't know why. I just wanted to ask that question.
Hey, it's an amazing question, Vicky. I really like it. Thank you very much. It's actually funny because you do have choices. No, a lot of times people don't realize they're like, okay, so I have my family, they don't support me in what I do. I have my old friends from school, they do not support me. They think I'm crazy somehow. And you're like, so I'm stuck with what I have. And it's actually super simple. Like sometimes it might sound a little bit cruel, so that's why I believe people don't take it as a possibility. But I'm not even talking about taking them out of your life, but there's always an open door for putting new people into your life. You can always have those. You can always have your family, your old friends who you love very much, but maybe you don't spend as much time as you spent before because each time you see them, they're kind of pulling you backwards, right? So what I do, and for me, it works perfect because I have great friends and great family. My family is just the best. I'm so happy I have them. It's just I'm very open. I put boundaries, and I'm like, listen, I am like that. This is not gonna change. Like I'm not a kid anymore. You're not taking care of me, so don't worry. I understand. I understand. There's a lot of worries, but breathe out with me. Everything is fine. That's what sometimes is difficult because when people love you, they suffer for you and they actually want the best for you. So it's I understand them. I put myself into their places, but then for a moment we breathe out together and we're like, we're gonna talk about this if you're going to be on the same road. If you're not, let's talk about something else. End of the story. And I do choose, answering to your question, I do choose to put a lot of these new people that. How to say, they influence change, they influence
Mm-hmm.
evolution in my life. So I have, let's say, 50-50, a little bit of both. And I feel very grateful for having this opportunity because I guess it's not so easy in a small village where I live. I forgot to tell you, Vicky, I'm an entrepreneur. Normally, entrepreneurs live in big towns because with big towns come bigger opportunities. But I guess that's no longer 100% true. There's a little bit
No.
because of internet, because of artificial intelligence, because of a lot of evolution. We can be in such a small place as I live right now, in a small town, rural town in France, and being able to surround myself with all these kinds of new people that I'm talking about anyway. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like my family's all entrepreneurs, so they all understand, how this process works and the help build you up and everything. But I have over the years, I've always had at least one or two people that was like, I don't get it. And I didn't say it as eloquently as you, but I would tell
You said
them,
it very eloquently, I
okay,
find. It just depends on how people take it. Like you can be
that's
very
right, that's
sensitive or
right.
you can take it the good way.
Right. So I will say sometimes people will naturally, without you doing a thing, start gravitating away because you don't have this common thread of, you know, being stuck and hating where you're at and looking forward to your vacation so you can escape life. And if you're people are like that, they're going to gravitate to people who feel just like that. That's just the nature of people. But
It really depends. Sorry for interrupting
okay,
you,
no
Vickie.
worries.
I guess I'm very lucky because my great friends, my great family are a little bit on this to the not bad or good, just to the left and me to the right, or vice versa. I don't care. Like saying that I am to the right or that they're a little bit to the left, in a way that I am the first generation entrepreneur. Like nobody in my group of
Oh,
friends or my
okay.
family has ever done it. But I am lucky to have these special people that, even though they belong to that other side of the road, they're very happy with what they're doing, because that's another part of the story.
Okay.
You can,
Yeah.
I don't know about your friend who is a teacher, but who tells you? I have no idea. Maybe that's something you know, or you should ask him if you don't know. Maybe it's his passion. He's not even looking forward for that vacation. He's taking it because why not? I do take them too, even though it's my passion. Sometimes I just take a vacation. I might end up talking about biohacking during my vacation because I love it.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
do
see, I
take
like
them
I
back to.
like vacations too, but it's not to escape life, it's to enhance it. And so I think it's just a different mindset about I love my life and I don't want to escape from it. I want to be part of it. And so I love that. But so tell me, how did you meet your wife?
Oh man, that was I've always been in love with the whole Russian. I'm not afraid to say it. It has nothing to do with politics. Politics, please. I mean, whoever is listening, it's just I don't know. Like some people call it. I don't know how to call it, okay? Because I'm gonna be very honest with you. You say you don't cut it, you don't edit it. It doesn't matter because I'm always gonna be a Christian. I'm 100%. Even if not, um, uh, what I be. Some people call it how do you call when you die and then you become a new body and all those things. Trans.
Born again?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, Vickie? They call it's Buddhist, especially that believe in that.
Oh, okay.
Uh, when you become your soul comes to another body, something like that. So I don't specifically believe
Reincarnation?
reincarnation. Thank
Okay.
you very much, Vickie. So I don't specifically believe in that with those words because I mean it is clean and clear written in the Bible that way, or it appears to me to be clean and clear. I mean, God can explain Himself later on, but I do have some
Right.
feeling, or I do have some feeling of something similar to that concept of reincarnation, something that has always been very pulled towards the Russian culture, and in my case, so I've
Hmm.
been to Russia, traveled all over the country. It's the biggest country in the world, and I have been everywhere. It has been very difficult for me to find a Russian person that has been to so many places as I have been, from Kamchatka all the way to Karelia in the northwest, so from the northeast to the northwest, going all the way across the country. I love it. I love it, and I love Russian people. I love Russian culture, the way they are. And I always knew the love of my life was Russian. And can you believe, instead of meeting her in Russia, I meet her in France, where which is I don't know, weird.
Meant to be, right?
Meant to be something like that, because there's not many Russians here. Maybe
Okay.
to the east of France, but here where we're at, I think she's the only one. Well, no, I'm
Okay.
lying to you. There's also my best friend, boy, talking about who is Russian as well. Can you imagine that? I
Yeah.
found myself my little Russian tribe here in the southwest of France. I believe they're the only two Russians
How funny is
in
that? So you met her there. So
mm.
how did you meet though?
Yeah, I mean, today, thanks to Facebook, it's easy. You know, you can actually contact people. My best friend was Russian, so I was really into meeting people that were Russian. So I met this guy at a party, just like that. Obviously, when he said he was Russian, I'm like, okay, let's be friends, whatever. And he liked the fact that I spoke Russian, so we got even closer and closer. And then here's my friends, here's their friends, and I ended up meeting Jeanne, who is her real name is Жанна, which is the Russian version of it. But here in France, everybody calls her Jeanne anyway. And
Okay. Yeah.
it's
So
been 2 years already.
how
It's
many?
been 2 years. Two
Two?
years together, and we just got married.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much,
Congratulations.
Vickie. Thank you.
So let's go into your biohacking because I'm very, very curious. So Explain exactly, as I guess exactly may not be the right word, but explain what biohacking is, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
okay. So I believe a very easy to understand metaphor is like the one I started with that I want to remind, just for starters. Huh? Like
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, a biohacker is to the human body like a mechanic is to the car, right? The mechanic
Mm-hmm.
takes care of the car. If you have a good mechanic, the car can drive forever almost. Like the difference between a good mechanic and a bad mechanic is the car runs a maximum of 400,000 kilometers. I mean, you're talking miles, so half of it pretty much 200,000, 300,000 miles. Basically, in average, I guess that's the motor life of a car, of a
Mm-hmm.
vehicle in average. And with a good mechanic, a lot of people that are into mechanics probably they can maybe in the comments they can say if this is true or not because I am not an expert in mechanics, but I do have a car that was bought by my father in. I drive it pretty much every day. It's not my main car, but I we love it. Well, it's gonna be there. I don't know until the end. I guess
What
three,
is it?
four
What is it?
generations. It's a Ford Mondeo, so American car. It was bought in the 1999, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
so almost 2000, and now it's been already, can you imagine, 25 years, almost 26, and it has almost a million kilometers, so more than around 600,000 miles, I guess, the
Wow.
motor. So that's a very, that's, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it has nothing to do, it
I
might
know,
seem
but
like it has nothing
it's a
to
good
do,
metaphor to go with
but
that. Yeah.
but I believe this Ford Mondeo goes so well because it has a very good mechanic who is a very good friend of my father and has always taken care of that car. There has never ever been a newbie or someone that doesn't care or doesn't know that took care of the car. And I believe that's one of the main reasons why the car is still alive and not only alive, doing very good today. And that's a very good metaphor, in my opinion, because the equivalent is said about a biohacker. A good biohacker is going to take care of the human body so good that it's going to um, build protocols based on special supplementation, based on special fitness training, based on special dieting, a bunch of things that are going to go together and are going to allow to the life of the client, of the human body, go to the maybe I don't know, maybe not forever, maybe not yet. We'll see. No, Brian Johnson says never, don't die.
Yeah.
I like to believe that. I like to always put a target that is very far away. So at least if we don't reach it, at least we're gonna reach something higher
Yeah.
than what we would have said anyway in the beginning. If we said let's just live to 120, maybe we would only get to 110. Whereas if we say, let's live to 200, why not? Maybe it's possible. Now with technology, with biomarkers, with all the things that we can measure, anything could be possible. I'm not saying everything is possible. I'm saying everything could be possible. And we're seeing now that myself, I am doing it. I'm testing many biomarkers in my body. And I realized that even though I was born 30 years ago, my musculoskeletal functions, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular functionality of my body, it's not of a 30-year-old person, but it's more of someone that is in his 18s or 1920s, you know. So there's things you can test nowadays thanks to new technologies that are coming out.
Okay.
That's
So
biohacking. Does that answer your question, Vickie, about what
it
biohacking
does, but
is?
I have more questions about it.
Obviously. Thank you very much.
So when you say, I understand what you say biohacking does, but how do you do that for someone? So let's say, for instance, you have someone that calls you wanting you to work with you. Are they calling you because they want to get fit? Are they calling you because they want to make sure they live a long time? What is it that they are generally calling you for?
They're calling me for many reasons. It's
Okay.
actually, people believe biohacking is only about reverting the biological clocks. it would only be people in their 40s, 50s, or that want to stop the speed of aging, or people in their 60s, 70s that want to reverse it because they see their lives are ending, in quotes, because
Yeah.
there's many things we can do, but it's very far from the truth. It's actually anybody that believes in a change. And when I say a change, I specifically talk about at a physical level or cognitive level, because biohacking treats also, it basically treats everything that has to do with the way you think, with the way your cognition works, with the way your body works. So if you believe you can have more energy, if you believe that you can have more libido, if you believe you can have more force, more strength, if you believe you can be a better version of yourself at a physical, mental level, you actually can get in touch with any biohacker for that matter, because that's their main job. Some are specialized in one area, some others are specialized in other areas. In general, a biohacker, a professional biohacker, specializes in everything. But as I was saying, because I like the power side of it, so basically it's people that are lacking energy, or that feel that could have more energy, even though their energy levels are good. They're like, okay, what it would be, but obviously they're not at 100% with all the poison we eat, with all the things that we probably, I mean, you only know what you know. Again, like it's as if, for instance, I have a business. No, I'm an entrepreneur. So in order to launch it, in order to make it profitable, the first thing I had to do, I didn't have to do it. I could have taken the longer road and learn it by myself, which is also very obviously very useful, no, because you learn the lessons. But it could have taken me 10 years, whereas I went on and I went to a business equivalent of a biohacker, but in business, right? So that he could teach me all the lessons that he learned on the way, and then I can also learn my own lessons, but I can go way faster thanks to his or her experience. So in my case, because I have been doing that for more than 10 years, and many professional biohackers have been doing it for more than 10 years. This is a new concept anyway. So you won't find someone that has been doing it for 20 years, or maybe only 3-4 people in the world that have been doing it for 20 years, because of the newness of the concept. And there's many questions that have answers. So those looking for answers, come towards me, call me.
Okay. Well, being a hypnotist, I help people to kind of get over the blocks and stuff that they have about things. So if it's somebody that has a block thinking that, because, well, let me back up. One of the things that I have found is that if you're watching TV and you're reading the magazines and the paper, you just automatically, the census out there that is people are trying to push down our throats, is that once you get to a certain age, it's just decline city. You might as well go ahead and get your walker, get your wheelchair, get your walking stick, and you might as well go ahead and be ready to go into that retirement home, and make sure that you've got one that is going to be there for the nursing home, and it's going to be there for when you have the cognitive decline. And it's mind-boggling to me, because I've tried to tell people so many times, I said, if that was the truth, then that would be everybody's truth. And it's not. There's exceptions to that. So there are ways to, like with the biohacking and things, there's ways to be different as you're getting older. Instead of declining, you're getting better. And so I love some of the things that you were saying about that. And so one of the focuses that I have, because I will admit I'm 65, and
You were
so
born 65 years ago. You don't have to be 65. You can have a
this is
20-year-old
true.
body.
Oh, thank you for that. I was born 65 years ago. I love that. Thank you for that reframe. The thing is that I search out all the time people that are defying the odds. So I was watching a YouTube just the other day with a woman that was 72. She's a bodybuilder, but she didn't become a bodybuilder till she's in like 62 or 63. And then she started working toward becoming a bodybuilder. Now, I don't really care to be a bodybuilder.
You
However,
shouldn't.
no, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, but I would love to say the next 5 years. No, let me take that back. That within the next year, I could become the most fittest I'd ever been in my life, the healthiest that I've ever been in my life. And um, so one of the things that you don't know about me is the reason I got into coaching was primarily was because I had struggled with my weight my whole life. And I finally decided I've either got to make peace with being fat and just let it be, or I had to do something definitely about it and stop doing the yo-yo cycle. And I decided I would become a health coach because I figured, this is how my mind works. I figured if I spent all that money, because it wasn't cheap, to become a coach, even if it only helped me, I would stick it out because I spent all that money, was the way I looked at it. But then as I went through it, I realized that this was some powerful stuff and I could help other people. And then I became a life coach and a transformational coach. And then I became a hypnotist. So I've done all these things, but it all started to help me, you know? And don't we find, or do you find that when people start looking for these answers, it's usually because something's come up and it makes them realize I need to start making a change.
You're totally right. That's a very interesting approach. It's funny how you tell it. It's pretty much the same for everybody, I believe, Vicky, some way or another. It's always relatable. In my case, I was never weight, but it was as you started talking about mental blockages and how you help people break these mental blockages. In my case, it was something that got me started was the belief that I could actually I was seeing all these athletes and all these people that were performing greatly physically, and that's something I always wanted to do, but I was asthmatic because I was born very early, so I believe my lungs were not fully developed. But then I realized, well, I either stay on the side that believes that I'm like that and nothing's ever going to happen or whatever. You see, Vicky, perhaps I'm going a lot to the left, to the right, but there's something I don't want to forget. I believe in the Olympic Games, Paris Olympic Games, they made a very good comparison. I don't want to be wrong. It must not exactly be like that, but it's similar anyway. I'm going to talk about numbers. So the
Okay.
100-meter people that run fast, right? Very fast. So Usain Bolt and all these guys, but not anymore. Now I don't know the name of the fastest right now. But the difference between the fastest normal in quotes, I say normal because how can I say that? There's the disabled Olympic Games and there's the other Olympic Games. We're not going to
Okay.
call them the normal, but
Okay.
then the I'm gonna call it normal because people will
Okay. That's
understand, and
fine.
I
We
hope
got
nobody
it.
judges me.
Yeah.
It's like that. Okay, so the normal Olympic, in the normal Olympic Games, and in the disabled Olympic Games, difference between the two fastest guys, the fastest ones, was not even 2 seconds. What I mean is that I believe one ran it in, I don't know, 9 seconds and something, whatever, the 100 meters, the normal Olympic Games, and the disabled one, if it was not even 2 seconds difference, I guess it was not even 11 seconds, like 10 and something. Can you believe that? How
That's
much time do you
crazy.
think it takes me to run 100 meters? And I am no disabled at all. It takes me
Yeah.
much longer than that. So it is not even a big difference anymore. So it's okay. Somebody could tell me, yeah, well, but then again, 1 second is enormous when we're talking about Olympic athletes. Okay, I get it. I get it. Yes, it's enormous. Sometimes it takes years of training to cut that to 1 second less. But who cares? It's actually it's just to explain the fact that it's all a mental blockage, and that all can be beaten down, all can be broken. You can go anywhere you want. I mean, as a matter of fact, I would even say that perhaps the one that is disabled is a better athlete than the one that is normal. Come on. I mean, only 1 second and something difference shouldn't be like
Yeah,
that. That should be some real motivation for the normal guy to go
that's
a little bit
right.
faster, in my
Better be
opinion,
kicking it
without
up a
meaning
little
to,
bit.
without wanting to insult anybody. Uh,
Right.
but it's and another metaphor that I love is, I don't know where I read it in a book. I believe it was "You Stole My Cheese" or something like that. It's the personal development book that I love very much. One of the
Hmm.
first ones I read. And
Who's got my
again,
cheese?
I
I
don't know
think it is.
who stole my cheese. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Vickie. I read it in Spanish. That's why I was trying to
Uh,
translate it literally. And I might be mistaken again, because all those things I'm saying it by memory, but don't mind it, please, if it's not from this book. The
That's
important thing is
okay.
that it's
I
a
do the
very good
same thing all
metaphor.
the time. I give quotes all the time, and I'll even say I don't have a clue who said this. It was in a book I read somewhere, but just take it. I know it's a quote from a book.
About the elephant that, as a baby, he was raised with a chain
Oh
around his
yeah.
ankle. And when the elephant became an adult, I mean, that chain was just like spaghetti for us, like breaking dry spaghetti with our fingers. Okay, maybe a little bit harder, but not so much. But the elephant wouldn't even try, because his whole life he has tested, he hasn't been able to break the chain, so he has given up. And the same happens with people, unfortunately. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we get into this wrong belief that because you're 70, because you're 60, because you're 80, like you're gonna end up anyway walking with a walker, or you're gonna end up having to take many pills and stuff like that. And this Korean, I believe it was a Korean woman, the one you were talking about, that started bodybuilding because she's famous. Again, could be another one, doesn't matter. Again, there's the story about this Korean lady that was
Mm-hmm.
also in her 70s, and she started becoming a bodybuilder. She became a bodybuilder, and to me that's so beautiful,
I
because
know.
that's the 50-year-old elephant. I don't know how long elephants live, but that's the equivalent of a very old elephant being
Mm-hmm.
like, can break this chain. And it is
Yeah.
not that difficult anyway. Okay, perhaps, yeah, well, it's not the best example, because the chain requires just a little bit of belief, and bodybuilding requires a couple of months of training in the first place, and then going and going on for many years,
Right.
obviously. But everything is exponential, and everything, in my opinion, is possible.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that comes to mind, and this is an old analogy, but it's a truthful thing. So you may not even know about it. I have no idea, but if you do, good. If not, this is a new one for you. But have you heard of Roger Bannister?
Oh, of course, the 4 minute
Yeah,
mile.
because
I mean,
before he ran that 4 minute mile, doctors would tell people don't do that because your heart will explode and all
bad
these
for
different
you.
things, right?
Yeah.
And so when he did it, suddenly the next day people are doing it everywhere because he had,
High school
yeah,
students were doing it 1 year later, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I don't want to say bullshit. I believe I read it somewhere. High
okay,
school students were already doing it. Not
yeah.
Olympians, high school students,
Yeah.
1 year
So
later.
so it's amazing because all that happened was this one person didn't stick to the beliefs that your heart's going to explode, won't go that fast. And he did it. And once he did it, that barrier was broken. And then it was like people said, oh, well, if he can do it, I can do it too. And it's like that with so many things. And so to me, it's like I'm always looking for who is aging so amazingly well that I can mirror, I can emulate that kind of thing, you know? So let's go ahead and go back. So when you're working with people with biohacking, you mentioned diet. So what kind of thing do you usually tell them with diet? What is the most important thing for someone to change?
Yeah, this is something, it's a very interesting question. Thank you very much, Vickie. This is something that it's a little bit, um, it is never the same for everybody. And that's the thing, that sometimes it's a little bit difficult for people that just getting the call to understand, because sometimes they're asking me questions and I'm like, well, wait, but we need to work on all these other things so that we can understand what diet, what way of eating. I don't even like the word diet, because
Me
it almost
either.
feels like you're eating less than, or you're eating things that you don't want, and nothing farther from the truth. It's actually about finding the right things that you actually like so that you can also be happy. Because I mean, let's be honest, you can biohack all you want, optimize the sleep, optimize diet, optimize everything you want in life, and be a Robocop almost. But if you're not happy, which a lot of people criticize these Brian Johnson and all these people that are living in their labs, right? And they're saying, well, but you're not being happy. Well, no, apparently they're doing what they love. They're doing their
Mm-hmm.
passion. I do believe them, because I live a very similar situation, even though I do drink every once in a while. But it's exceptions. It doesn't matter. At least I stay happy and I heal my guts so that I can allow myself to do those things every once in a while. But I don't need to do it every weekend. I honestly don't. Some people maybe do. I don't know. It depends on each one. That's why we have to jump into an individual and personalized consultation, because that way I can understand the goals of each person and set a protocol, an individual unique protocol that is going to allow them to be happy, do and eat what they want, while practicing biohacking and optimizing their body health. So just because I want to answer your question with a little bit of a more direct thing, I realized this was a little bit ambiguous. I apologize, but it's really, I don't want to say like this is superfood, this is poison, because it is not even true. Some superfoods are poison for some people, some poisons are superfoods for others. The most evident example is that allergies like nuts, we hear all the time, well, nuts are superfood, very good for you. But what about people that die if they eat nuts? There's a lot of
Right.
them. So that's the best
Mm-hmm.
example. I mean, obviously, that's an allergy, so it's different. But allergies happen at many levels. So to answer your question, Vickie, what I am going to say, what someone can do on their own, and obviously if they decide to call me or any professional biohacker, this person would help them get faster, is by testing the things that work, the things that don't work. And pretty much the only two advices that I would give to absolutely everyone, this one, I apologize, but this, you can debate me on this for, you can give me as many debate points as you want. I'm pretty sure, and maybe I'm lacking of modesty here, but I am pretty sure I'm always gonna win this argument.
Okay. I want to hear it.
You're never gonna prove me wrong. When I say in general, sugar, like, but not sugar like complex sugar. No, sugar, just the white powder, the
Artificial
chemical,
sugars,
the
sugarcane,
processed
processed sugar.
sugars.
Okay.
So stay away from that. It's a drag. I know it's difficult. Like, stop lying to yourself. Well, if I do it every once in a while, it doesn't matter. Stay away from that. So I don't know about the things you should be eating, because each person is a whole world, and we have to dive into a lot of information, tests, and trials. But about the things you shouldn't be eating, sugars would be, in my opinion, the first example. Not because it's the worst, but because it's the most common. And I'll explain you in a minute why it's not the worst, because some people might be like, I mean, I guess it's, I've always heard that it's the worst. And I'm like, yeah, wait until you hear what I got to say. Because sugars, even though they're very, very, very bad for you, processed sugars, again, we're talking about, you can kind of, if you do a lot of exercise, that's why, take it with a pinch of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, Sorry, that's why some people might be taking it with a pinch of salt, but in my opinion, they shouldn't, because they can use other kinds of sugars to have the same feeling. Like, they're very fit and they're very strong and they have a beautiful body, but most of them, I bet, they're very young and they're like, yeah, but I do a lot of sports, so I burn all those sugars. And I'm like, okay. But in the long term, wait until the long term, the things that you can do to yourself. I'm not saying everybody's doing it. Like, my goodness, okay, there's exceptions. You can obviously find people that smoke. There's this French lady, her name was also Jeanne, and she's famous. She smoked until she died. I believe she was 110 years old or something like that. And they used her to promote that smoking was good and stuff like that, and to sell more tobacco and things like that. And I'm like, I mean, you can't take one person out of millions or thousands or hundreds of thousands that are dying from lung cancer, but you're taking just that one to say, well, if you're happy and you don't judge yourself, you can do whatever you want. There's a part of truth on everything. No, not really.
Yeah.
In general, you're much better off not eating sugar. And believe me, you don't have to be an unhappy person just because you don't eat sugar. Work it out with a coach, work it out with a psychologist, work it out. It might be a blocking again, a barrier. You're telling yourself that you need the sugar to be happy. Because I say that because most of my clients, this is the argument that I find very recurrent, that repeats itself. Like, yeah, well, but I like it so much, so it's also important to be happy. And I'm like, well, yeah, obviously, I'm not be happy, but find a balance, find a way of getting rid of it. So first one, sorry, I'm getting a little bit it's getting a little bit long about that. So
No,
sugar
that's okay.
out of
And
your.
I will say real quick, I have worked with people that wanted to give up sugar but just couldn't. And I would do this process through hypnosis of desensitizing them to the sugar so that it didn't constantly draw them in. So it's really powerful stuff. And the thing that happens to some people that I've worked with in the past, especially as a health coach, because I would tell them, let's get rid of the sugar. And they would be able to do it for a while. And then something would happen. They would go to a birthday party or they would go somewhere where everybody's ingesting sugar and they would just automatically begin again. And then they'd be right back at what felt like square one to them. And I will share one of the things that now I am not an expert and nor am I perfect at this because I still ingest sugar. I had some yesterday. But it's not the draw that it used to be. It used to be I had to have it constantly, whether it was in a drink or
It's a drug. It's a drug.
yeah,
People don't
it's like a
realize.
drug. It just draws you in. And I promise I was going somewhere with this. Where was it? Well, I done forgot. So we'll go ahead and I'll remember
Okay.
probably
You
midnight,
you were
but
saying
hey,
just trying to help you out, but then if not, we'll remember later. You were saying something like, yeah, well, sugar, I'm still eating it. Like I'm not as drawn as I was before, but well, no, okay.
don't remember. We'll get it later. So go ahead.
Second, second thing, Vicky, and in my opinion, the most important one. Okay,
Hmm.
I'd say that because it's way more nocive, deathly in general, and
Okay.
it's bad oils. Like, and why
Yeah.
I say that because sugar again. Even though it's very bad, please don't use it as an excuse. That's why I wanted to put sugar in the first place. Don't use these as an excuse to eat sugar. Just don't fool yourself. Don't eat either of the two, but don't use it. The fact that sugar, you can kind of burn it in general, even though obviously in the long term it can bring a lot of irreversible problems related with diabetes and many other health conditions. But if not, then you can always burn it. Take it with a pinch of salt. Please don't. My advice would always be to be away from it.
Hmm.
It's bad oils because they actually nourish your organs and you do not really get rid of them. Like sometimes you might think this is a little bit exaggerated, Vicky, but there's some tests that are being doing now. I don't want to talk too much about it because they're not very clear up until now on that. But there's some tests and some studies that have shown that it can be with you even for years. Maybe you decided to buy a donut, and it's not about the sugar. The sugar, you can burn it, but if the donut you didn't make it home, if it's something you bought processed that they made with the cheapest oil, obviously, because they want to make money. So why would they use extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed, etc.? It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna spend
Yeah.
$20 on a bottle of oil when they can spend less than $1. No, they're gonna use the one that approaches the car oil that you use for your
Mm-hmm.
car. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it's there's actually this scandal in Spain. It's famous. You can Google it. Like it was very famous. It was in the 80s, 70s, 60s. I don't remember exactly. It was before I was born. They sold big amounts of car oil in the
Mm-hmm.
supermarkets as for consuming, for eating. A lot of people
Really?
died. Yeah, yeah. In the
Oh.
United States, it would have been even worse. Because there's more this culture of suing, suing, suing. In Spain, not so much. I don't know why. Anyway, obviously they had to pay lots of money. Obviously they were out of business, but I don't know if a lot of people ended up in prison or maybe just one. I don't know about that, but they actually sold car oil for consumption. For so it's just as a metaphor, has nothing to do. Obviously when you buy in the supermarket sunflower, the cheapest oil you can find, it's not for the car. Okay, no, don't try to think that that's what I'm so people that are listening, don't try to believe that that's what I'm preaching. But anyway, it's just a metaphor to showcase how in the seek for money, which is obvious because they're businesses. They're just going to make the biggest buck, buck, the biggest money they can make. Not all of them are interested in health, and if you believe the government and all these guys are behind you, but not so much. I mean, look at sugar. You can buy it everywhere, so it's
Mm-hmm.
relatively not true that they're behind you. Okay, they're going to protect you from eating just poison that is going to kill you tomorrow, but not from poison that is going to kill you in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depending on regulations of each country. So bad oil is something that you can pretty much buy anywhere in the world, in any supermarket, and then you shouldn't be eating. What do I mean by bad oil? Well, it's a long story, Vickie. We would be talking about oils only about oils for 3 hours, but just to make it very easy so people can know and you know what actually is one healthy option or two or three healthy options. Just look for the extra virgin cold pressed. When it says cold pressed, it means that it's actually not done in a lab, not doing in a, it can be doing in an industrial way, like with big machines and stuff, but the process is not mixing something with other things or taking things to an elevated temperature. No, cold pressed means it's pretty much like the Moroccan grandmas that are doing argan oil or olive oil in the villages. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I traveled to Morocco, and
Mm-hmm.
they actually do it themselves. They press the olives by hand, and they do it with their bodies, and then you have olive oil, and that's the one I'm talking about. That's the one you can consume. You can do it with olive oil. You can do it with argan oil. A little bit more difficult to find in the United States, Canada, and this side of the globe, but a little bit easier here in Europe, or coconut extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed as well. But stay
Mm-hmm.
away from all these sunflower full of vitamins. They
Yeah.
plus they always say it almost looks like they're even the healthiest because they say plus vitamin B1, 2, 3, 4, D. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, to
well they
me,
put all that.
that's always an indicator to me that it lacks everything. So they're having to come in and add some stuff to make it halfway even bearable. Um, I created a workshop that was about sugars. And so one of the things that to me is really important is because when we tell people to not eat sugar, then they start doing sugar substitutes.
Mm,
And the sugar substitutes, like I in this workshop, I found 5 different sugar substitutes that were on different labels. So I just went and got some labels and started looking at it because I was talking to them about hidden sugars. And the thing is, some of those things on the label, you wouldn't know it was supposed to be a sugar substitute. And I only did 5, and each one of them had side effects that were so big. It was like, how can they even put this in our food? And it's disguised as something else. So, what do you recommend for people? Like, if they're going to give up sugar when it comes to, but I've got to have something sweet, what sweetener is the best? Is there anything?
Look for sweet natural things, I'd say, is my first advice. Again, we could be hours and hours talking about the origins of all, like, how do you call those, um uh, all the sweet things in the world, but I believe the easiest approach, and the one that is going to be less boring and more exciting, because it's just going to be uh, uh, put in a phrase, or in a couple of phrases anyway, that I'm going ahead right now. It's just the use of fruits. I mean, my goodness, if you don't like one fruit, try the other. How many fruits are
Hmm.
in the world? I'm very sure you're gonna find one or two that you love, and you're gonna be able to use them in order to have that sweet kick that you need. Use syrups, like there's syrups that are actually natural. Like, obviously, don't go to the supermarket and like raspberry syrup, apricot syrup, all those. I don't know if in the United States, in Canada, there's that, but here in France, there's like a syrup for every fruit. Okay, I'm not talking about those syrups. I'm talking about like the ones that come out of the plant, out of the fruit naturally. It is already a syrup, not a syrup that has been processed,
Hmm.
but something that already has a syrup inside, like agave. Agave in English, you call it, right? Like
Hmm.
it's a cacti from. They
Yeah.
make tequila. They make mezcal, which is a kind of tequila from it. Sorry, tequila is a kind of mezcal, because anyway, tequila is their denomination name. So that plant has a syrup inside. So that syrup, but look in the label, that it says 100%
Yeah.
agave syrup, because it could say 95% agave syrup, 5% sugar, and you're like, why do you even put sugar there? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, obviously they want it to be more addictive. They want it to be more,
Yeah. Yeah.
even cheaper. Sometimes they just want it to be cheaper, not even more. They're like, okay, it's cheaper if we add five. So they've done a very good food, and just because of marketing, but then very little in the label. We're gonna put that 25% of it is cheap stuff, but
Yeah.
then they're gonna have to read very carefully. So I'd
Yeah.
say it might sound boring, but nowadays, unfortunately, you have to look in the labels, because nobody's going to look for you. So you're gonna
Right.
have to be very careful, and it's a work you gotta do, because you're fueling uh, your body, you're fueling yourself. Can you imagine? Would you fuel? That's something very funny. I mean, sometimes, not to judge or anything, but I have a friend that is very rich, and but he's not in the best shape at all. And he loves all these supercars, Ferraris, Bugattis, and all that. And I'm like, would you ever put, I don't know, like in the gas stations? I guess in Canada, United States, it's the same. You always have different kinds, like
Hmm.
the one that is not so good, the one that is the best premium. I mean, would you put something that is not the premium quality into your Bugatti? And he said, oh my goodness, never ever. Can you imagine? That car costs $2 million? I don't care, even if it costs $6 million. How much does your body cost? I mean, are you
Right.
even kidding? And he's not in the best of shape. Sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes there's hormonal things. Obviously, there's always things we can work on. Nobody has to be in bad shape. There's always work that can be done with the help of a professional. Never think that it's too difficult. It's obviously different for some people, but this guy doesn't even want to do it. He's happy with his McDonald's and with his trash food and all that. So anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know how can you can't
Yeah.
force anyone.
Yeah. You can't argue with them. It's like, because they wouldn't stick with it anyway. But that's one of the things. It's like we all have free choice, so we get to choose how we want to proceed with once we get information like this is so valuable. And once you know it, you can't unknow it, but you
Mm.
can disregard it and not do it. And so people have that option too. But if they want to learn how to live longer and healthier and have more energy and do all of those things, then they definitely need to sit up and pay attention.
You said something that I believe is very important and that we should point out, in my opinion, Vickie, if you agree. You talked about information, especially nowadays in the era of information we live in, where information is so easy to get. Like Isaac Newton said it, right? Like everybody believed he's a genius and all that. And he's, in literal words, I know this phrase in Spanish, so I apologize if it's not the same in English, but he said something like, well, not really. I am who I am because I have ridden, as in on a horse, on the backs of giants. He was talking about all the other Isaac Newtons that were before him, all the other guys that have given the information that he has worked with, and he has created new information. And nowadays we do have a name that I like a lot. I don't know if you've heard about him. He's Claude Shannon. Claude Shannon. He's American, I believe, from Michigan, and he's actually the father of. I don't understand why we don't give him all the merit he has, because he's pretty much, in my opinion, the inventor of internet, the inventor of computers. I mean, other people have taken advantage of his discoveries, and nobody has given him credit. But Claude Shannon, do you know who he is, Vickie? Claude Shannon is the father of information. You look it up on YouTube if you want.
I
Actually,
wrote
the
it down
first
so
one,
I can look it up.
Claude Shannon, the first one talking about this concept of being able to distribute information, quantify information, at what rate information is given all over the world, kind of a thing. So what cell phones and computers do, pretty much, that first idea, someone had to have it, and in my opinion, I might be wrong, but the first one to have that idea publicly but not very well advertised, as I just said, was Claude Shannon. And we don't give him merit for that, but information is the key, as you said, Vickie. Information is the key.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I love about coaches. Like, because I like to say that you can learn a lot of things and you can make a lot of strides on your own. But when you have a coach, I like to say it's like you're down here and you're walking your path, and your coach has a drone up above you, and then they can look down and they can say, hey, when you get up here to the next exit, you take a right because the bridge is out and you want to divert that bridge. And and we can see that if you take this path, this next path coming up, that's going to send you down a valley that you don't want to go on, so go this way. So having a coach is someone who can have a bird's eye view of what your body can do and who you are, and help direct you a little bit on that path. Not to say that you'll never make mistakes, because coaches let you do your own thing. They just guide you. And so to me, it's like, do you want to make a little bit of strides, like taking all the years, like you had said earlier? Or do you want to jump in and have things start changing very quickly? So definitely, if you're in that stage of you want to change things quickly, make sure that you look at the show notes and you get how you can connect with both of us, because it would be amazing to have some of these people to reach out to you and do this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to reach out and just have a conversation with you because I'm really interested. And I know we're a little past time, but that's okay. Because I want to ask a couple of things. I know we've talked about, let's stop the sugars and the only use the better oils, but you had mentioned like there's the sleep and these different things. So are there like this big wide range of the things that you touch on? Can you just maybe a little bit about that?
Of course, Vickie.
Okay.
I love it. I mean, it's. I mean, we could be. Obviously, we're going a little bit over the time, and I apologize for that. Sometimes
Oh,
I get a
it's
little
not
bit
your
too
fault.
passionate.
I'm just
The thing is,
excited.
we could be here talking for 15 hours, and we wouldn't even cover 1% of the whole topic, because it's a
Right.
big passion. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. For the last more than 10 years, I guess I don't know if I've been spending, not working, just studying, just informing myself, but an average of 45 hours a week, just getting better. So
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing
Nice.
how much I love this. And then obviously all the work that I do with my clients, but this is only about improving. So a key for me would be quantification. underestimate. In my opinion, we overly underestimate. You know how there's two kinds of people? I mean, there's many kinds of people, but there's two main kinds of people when we talk about the brain, like left hemisphere, right hemisphere. If I'm not mistaken, when you're a more left hemisphere person, that means you're more logic, mathematical, algebra, things like that. And when you're more right-sided brain, it's more like you're creative, you're artistic, and we all have these, not all, some people understand this concept better, just because this is what I'm just trying to go to is take this as a test for yourself. If
Okay.
when I say what I am about to say, you believe, well, yeah, not really, I don't like it, it's boring, I prefer just going with the flow, just take it as a hint for maybe just maybe you're just a very creative person, which is good, but then allow yourself to take advantage of the logical part of it, which can help you improve a lot, which is quantification, which is the mathematical side of it. Nowadays, thanks to technology, we can measure the things. And I say people underestimate, because how many people do you see that it's just as an example, but I guess it's the easiest to see, want to lose weight. How many use the scale twice a day, every day? Maybe not everybody, I don't know. But that's something that obviously accompanied by a protocol, specific protocol. I would always encourage people to do if what they're looking for is to lose weight. Just as an example, thankfully we can quantify many more things than just weight nowadays, thanks to technology. But anyway, let's say that it's 100 years ago. The only thing we can quantify is a scale. Doesn't matter. Well, we'll use it then. Don't underestimate the power of the tools that are actually technology. And imagine if you had to invent them yourself. I don't know about you, Vickie, but if I had to invent the scale without knowing that the scale exists, I don't even know I could. So just think about it as a funny way of being grateful of, oh yeah, I'm gonna use it, because okay, it might be a little bit boring numbers. I just go with the flow. If I feel like I'm doing good, then I eat this. If I feel like I'm doing bad, I eat that. And I'm like, don't let that fool you, because you might feel like sugar is helping you because whatever, you're feeling full of energy at some point, but then in the long run you're doing something bad. And that just as an example, it's not only sugar, there's many other things that you can test for. And quantification is a very important part of a biohacking protocol, of a power biohacking protocol that I practice. Quantification of everything you do in life, not only weight, but strength, quantification of sleep performance, quantification of brain function, all that.
Wonderful. Oh, this is so exciting. I love this. So maybe at some point I can have you come into my Facebook group and talk to my members, because I'm teaching more about getting out of your own way and standing up and standing out and being able to speak and speak your truth and that kind of thing. But
It's
everybody
complementary.
wants to be healthier, right?
Mm.
So I really feel like that maybe we'll figure something out, and you
It,
can come into my group and speak.
it will be a big pleasure, Vickie. Thank you
Yeah,
very much for the idea,
yeah,
for the invite.
yeah, that would be wonderful. Well, like I said, we've gone over, so we're going to go ahead and close this up. So is there anything that you wanted to share with our listeners or our viewers that maybe I didn't touch on that you thought when you got on here, if I can say one thing, this is it?
Yeah, thank you, Vickie. I believe I've talked about the most important things.
Okay.
I've covered some of them anyway, and we would only be adding 15 minutes over 15 minutes over 15 minutes. What I would say is, for respect for everybody that is listening, because obviously they also have their lives going on. Whoever wants to know more, I mean, anything, any question is always welcome. Like I don't know where you're distributing these, Vickie, but I mean, on Facebook you can find me as Borja Fernández, Power Biohacking, but you can find me in any other platform, and any question can be asked. It's always with great pleasure that I share my knowledge, and that I let people know about the things that they're interested in specifically, because I could talk about general things all day, but I believe
Right.
in the end of the day, each person has his unique journey. Some people might be having difficulties with sleep. Some people might be having difficulties with weight, difficulties with strength, with energy, with libido, with cognition. So open doors for anyone that want to know more and that wants to reach out and be helped.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you for that. And I want to thank our viewers, our listeners for being here today. And I'm going to end like I always do with my favorite quote. And I've read who did it, and now for some reason I'm not remembering. I should write it down. But the best way to predict the future is create it. And that's what we're talking about here. If you want to
Ah,
live a long
beautiful.
life, you got to create it. And so I tell everybody to make sure that you look at the show notes and you get all the things of how you can connect with both of us. And we look forward to seeing you soon. So thanks a lot,
Um,
everybody. Mwah.